Hello folks, Anita Rao. Hope everyone is well. Now I've been asked many times to speak more on relationships. So today I will approach this topic from an angle that I think perhaps we neglect and we need to look at before even considering compatibility. Now, in my readings, when it comes to relationship matching, I do look at the traditional points-based system, the Ashtakut Guna, as well as the Dashkut systems. So the points, basically the points-based system, it can give us some clues, but according to me, it is far from enough, especially in the era that we live in. Because the way that we relate to each other has changed dramatically in the last 2 decades. I've also devised like a 10-factor analysis where I assess relationship compatibility, which can provide more in-depth clues to that compatibility. And in my readings, I always address these factors. Of course, every astrologer has their own views and focuses on various parameters when it comes to relationships. But I'm going to talk today about an issue that often gets overlooked. Before even approaching compatibility, or for that matter, timing of relationship, one has to see relationship capacity. Essentially, what that is how much value do you place on relationships? Are you relationship driven, or are you more individualistic? For those that are more relationship orientated, they tend not to throw in the towel so quickly when things aren't going their way, or the person is not responding as they would like. And for those that are not, they seem to think that the next person will be more ideal, more suitable, more compatible, and so on. Of course, this can also be a result of timing, which plays a very big role, but for now, I'm going to talk about relationship capacity. Yeah. Now, just some basics before getting to the astrology. A relationship must be useful, it must be practical, and basically have a path or a purpose of its own in order to thrive in the long term. So for instance, what was it traditionally? Traditionally, this purpose was having a child together. But this no longer guarantees that a relationship will survive or last long term. But if you are in your relationship only for the purpose of eating and sleeping together, it may not have lasting power. So essentially, you need to have a purpose that stretches outside of the relationship. And this can evolve over time, right? This can change, of course. And we can see this like through Saturn-Jupiter connections in the chart. We also want an element of joy, excitement, and kind of like a longing, a feeling of longing in the relationship, because this creates a bond. It creates attachment, and this can be seen by that, Venus-Mars connection. And there must be a feeling of belonging. I think this is quite important. And it connects into that purpose, a feeling of belonging, a sort of affinity that you feel with each other. Sun moon connecting, the nodes connecting with the moon, or even the other person's sun, like the nodes and the luminaries, I can show that. It's actually very easy to break relationships. To maintain a relationship, rather, you have to constantly remind yourself of the good bits. Again, it could be just that one factor that keeps it together. And And perhaps that's good enough. On the other hand, you will be confronted with many reasons to break a relationship throughout the duration of that relationship. And of course, sometimes it is appropriate to do that. It's appropriate to move on and necessary to move on. So only you can tell. Let's get into the astrology. Today I'm going to focus on two things. First, of course, is relationship capacity, which is fairly simple. It's based on the dignity of the sun and moon in your own chart. And the second is that, like, that basic biological impulse to connect with that specific person. So on to the first thing. Here we see relationship capacity. Are you relationship orientated, or are you fiercely independent? Are you quick to make compromises in relationships, or do you not think it's worth the sacrifice? Do you prefer to be in the company of others, or do you prefer to be alone? do you prefer your own company? For this, we look at the dignity of the sun and moon in your chart. It all comes back to this. And I know that if you go a deeper layer, timing is, of course, very much essential to analyze this, but we're going to stick to the capacity for now, yes? So, what do I mean by the dignity of the sun and moon? If you have the sun or the moon in the nodal axis, this will lead to difficulties in relationships. It could be sun with Rahu, it could be sun with Ketu. It could be moon with Rahu, it could be moon with Ketu. I would also look at the D9 chart for these placements. Yeah. The sun embodies masculine principle. The sun has a fixed nature. No matter what, every single day, the sun will rise and the sun will set. It is thus regarded as positive, optimistic, because it spreads warmth and light. Whereas the moon embodies the feminine principle. It has a variable nature. It waxes and wanes all month long. Yeah, it is regarded as negative, dark, changeable, and at times unpredictable. Since feminine energy, which the moon symbolizes, is negative, it is aware of what it does not have and thus yearns for union with something positive, something definitive, something secure. Yeah. But if the sun is caught in the nodal axis, there will be lack of clarity with life path, with life purpose, life direction, perhaps even career direction. And this is especially impactful for a man. If he does not feel confident in his career or his life path, he may feel inadequate in a relationship, and this will impact how he relates to a woman. If the sun gets obscured by the shadow of the nodes, then the negative qualities of the sun will emerge. If this happens, the sun will not be able to shine its light. It's as simple as that. And therefore, the moon will not be able to reflect this light, this confidence, this positivity back to the sun, right? So this is especially the case, I think, if the sun is with Rahu. Yeah. If the moon is caught in the nodal axis, it becomes difficult to express your thoughts, your feelings, and ask for what you need in a relationship. This is especially impactful for a woman. If the woman has trouble with her emotions, expressing them, feeling good about them, then this can lead to problems in a relationship. Especially the case if the moon is with Ketu, or even in an angle to Ketu. So like, for example, the moon is in Libra and Ketu is in Capricorn. So let's take some simple examples. When the sun and the moon, the masculine and feminine energies get distorted or are stressed, you could say, then it shows up in the way that you relate to one another. So for instance, when a man gets angry, it is actually his feminine side that is surfacing in a negative way as a result of his masculine side not being confident enough to handle the situation. Yeah. And when a woman gets angry, it's actually her masculine side that is surfacing in a negative way as a result of her feminine side feeling hurt or perhaps dishonored. Now here I'm not just referring to gender differences, but rather how much you yourself are identifying with the masculine feminine in you, that masculine feminine principle in you, or energy you could call it. So depending on how much in touch with that side of yourself you are, this is expressed in different ways, whether you're male or female. If the masculine and feminine energies are operating in a healthy way, then likewise this also shows. So for example, when a man tries to perhaps heal a relationship, he will approach a woman with a positive offering, idea or suggestions about their future together. And this is essentially that solar energy working in a healthy way, manifesting in a healthy way. It is positive, it is optimistic, and more importantly, it's focused on solving the problem. That's very much that solar energy. When a woman tries to heal a relationship, she will actually approach a man with all of the reasons that the relationship is not working and why they don't belong together. And this is the manifestation of lunar energy. It is changeable, it is negative, and it constantly needs reassurance. Yeah. So in this example, if the masculine energy is working in a healthy way, the man will easily offer these reassurances. It sounds perhaps too simplistic. Well, it is, actually. Unfortunately, people have lost touch with this basic biological impulse, and the masculine and feminine expression has gone completely out of balance. And as such, it has had a negative impact when it comes to relating to each other, even like with the most minor things. Partly perhaps because in the pursuit of being equal, the biological differences are no longer respected or honored. Right? And I'm not suggesting to go back 30 years ago and that's the solution. No. Rather what I'm saying is that don't entirely dismiss those biological differences and, be respectful and perhaps be mindful of how the feminine and masculine principle works. Okay, so back to the sun and the moon. If the sun is with Saturn or Mars, it can make someone too critical and temperamental in a relationship. Again, this can be more impactful for a man. If the moon is with Saturn or Mars, it can make a person negative, pessimistic, rash, impulsive. And this can be more damaging for a woman. So if your relationship capacity is challenged, and for many people, you'll have one of the above combinations, right? Whether it's the D1 or whether it's the D9. If you do have a challenge in relating that stems from this, then it becomes even more important to see whether you're compatible with the other person. The reason is that if you're not aware that your own relationship capacity is challenged, you may continuously replace one person with another with the same or similar outcomes. If not, if the relationship capacity is more or less good, you will be able to forge healthy, positive relationships with most people. Again, depending on timing. Yeah. Because if you do have a balanced and dignified planetary placement with the sun and the moon, and you have no serious relation capacity issues, and yet you are still experiencing problems finding or keeping someone suitable in your life, then check the dasha sequence you're going through. It's down to timing. Because you could have the most dignified placements, but if you're in a Mars or Ketu dasha, and they're impacting relationship angles, then it's going to be very difficult to find or keep a good relationship during that dasha phase. Also, if you're going through the 6th house or 10th house dashas, relationships could simply be less of a priority for you. Now, the other thing to speak about, which is related to, this is the placement of the moon in relation to your partner's moon placement, right? Again, this relates to that biological impulse to connect with that specific person and perhaps even stay connected. The moon is what? It's manas. The moon is manas, it's the mind, it's in which resides the self, which is the ego. The moon, its condition, its placement, therefore, is most important for compatibility. Yeah, and that's what, in fact, Vedic astrology focuses on when it comes to compatibility. The moon is also the social planet and the conditioned consciousness, and thus it also symbolizes the water element. So as a woman, it is ideal if your partner's moon placement falls before yours. So in other words, you are Taurus moon and he is Aquarius, or you are Taurus and he is Scorpio. Taurus is 4 signs from Aquarius, Aquarius being behind Taurus, and we like that. So this is an excellent connection, and it's binding too, because it's the 410 connection. Or if it's Scorpio and you're Taurus, it's also good, because they're both across from each other, so it's that 1-7 connection being created. This essentially means he can see you. He can understand you, your thoughts, and your feelings instinctively. If his moon placement is in Cancer and yours is in Virgo, again, this is good because it is 3 places before yours. Whereas if his moon placement is in Cancer and yours is in Aries, yours is 10 places away, and this may mean he cannot read you as well as you can read him. Whenever we see a man's moon placement before a woman, it is effortless for him to get her, to understand her. So you will not need to chase him or constantly wait for him to respond to you. The relationship will just flow in such a way that the man will be respected for his thoughts and actions and a woman for her feelings. And in this way, a man can feel that the woman appreciates what he does for her. And the woman can feel like the man cares for her, right? Because she's not sort of chasing him. So, ideally, it means that the couple can be more inclined to respect each other. And then, of course, from that love, from that respect, the love grows. But this is not the only way that this can manifest, right? This dynamic. There are other ways that we can get to this same outcome. The other way this can work out also is if his sun is opposite your moon. For instance, he is Scorpio sun and you're Taurus moon. So essentially what's happening here, the sun is illuminating that moon. Here the sun's condition should be good in order for it to give light. Because essentially what this is Purnima. It's a full moon, where the sun's light comes back from the moon. The sunlight doesn't go anywhere else. It goes from the sun to the moon and then back to the sun. And that's what it is in nature. Yeah. Or alternatively, it could be sun conjunct the moon. His sun is in Aries and your moon is in Aries. Essentially, this is a new moon, Amavasya. Here, the sun's light doesn't leave in the first place. So there's a feeling of being at one with each other because the sunlight didn't go anywhere. Yeah. Now, what if you don't have these connections, the moon's position, and then that sun-moon contact in the chart? How else can we feel that, that biological impulse to connect? Well, then you need to see how Rahu and Venus are connecting in each other's chart. Why Rahu and Venus? Because Rahu and Venus are the agents of desire. In fact, this connection is very important in the era that we live in, because it not only creates attraction, a spark, a longing, but it can keep that relationship interesting enough so that you don't have to look elsewhere. So, do you have a Venus and Mars connection, for example? Now, the classics don't really speak about this, but I have seen in the era that we live in, it is helpful to have this connection, as it can sustain a relationship. Yes, it can also create excessive passion and therefore fights. But if you don't have this, the person may look outside of the relationship to get their needs fulfilled. Again, when I say Venus and Mars connection, I'm talking about conjunction or opposition. Like, now, notwithstanding Venus and Mars, you look to see where Rahu is. And Rahu is a very potent connection. Even more so than Mars. Is Rahu connecting either with the moon or Venus via conjunction? If so, this will create longing and excitement, and also positive growth in the relationship. Initially, you may be reluctant to get involved with each other, because Rahu can bring fear also. But the longer you're together, the better the relationship will evolve, provided that there are dignified placements of Rahu and Venus and Rahu and Moon. Again, the focus is on the two watery planets, Moon and Venus. Yeah, because those are the two relationship planets. And when Rahu's connecting with them, it's energizing that planet. It's creating the desire to connect. And sometimes fear, but that dissolves in time. And the connection gets better and better with time. With Rahu, it's always initially just that spark, that thirst for experience. But again, you have to see other things, what's happening in the charts, like how are the dashas lining up. It can actually be a very positive connection. Moon, I think, is even more important. Moon and Rahu. If you want to establish intimacy and if you want to establish a close bond. In fact, I would add here that anytime you have the nodes connecting with the other person's luminaries, then this creates a strong impulse to connect. So whenever you have the nodes with, so one person's Rahu Ketu with another person's sun or moon, this can definitely lead to a compelling attraction and can certainly last a lifetime. This is basically the power of the nodes with the luminary conjunctions. So that's the basics when it comes to the impulse to connect that I've kind of covered here. But some final words about relationship capacity. Irrespective of whether you are a man or a woman, there are certain birth nakshatras that are just more relationship orientated. So even in the face of incompatibility, there is a feeling of wanting to work things out. Some of these relationship-orientated nakshatras include Rohini, Magha, Hasta, Revati, Ardra, Vishaka, Shravan, and Uttarabhadra. So if you have your moon here, your inclination will be to make the relationship work irrespective of compatibility or timing issues, because you will have better relationship capacity. Now, it may not be as simple as that. So you may have, for example, your moon in Revati, but Rahu or Mars are very, very close by in Revati also, right? So that modifies the situation. I'm just very much generalizing here. There are certain nakshatras that are less relationship orientated, and they tend to be more individualistic. They can be quite intense at times. They can also be unpredictable at times. And for those reasons are less relationship orientated. These are Ashlesha, Mula, Dhanishta, Swati, Bharani, Jyeshta, Shatabishak, and Purvabhadra. If I didn't mention your birth nakshatra, you are somewhere in the middle. Not too individualistic, but perhaps not willing to do whatever it takes to make things work. Yeah. Well, that's all for now. Hope you enjoyed that. Feel free to comment, like, and subscribe. All the best, folks. Cheers.